I'm Mark Regan, a lawyer for Disability Law Center. This is the Medicaid waiver training about supported employment, Section H. Supported employment is one of the kinds of services that you can get as part of your waiver service plan when you get onto the IDD waiver. The basic idea of supported employment is that you're getting help in finding work and keeping work. The help can be either helping you get into a private job and accommodations that you might need on the job. For example, if you're the kind of person who doesn't do particularly well with written instructions on the job, you need people to say things, maybe you need people to say things more than once, the person who's helping you with supported employment can tell your employer, this is what he needs to do. This is what you need to do. This is what he needs to do. And so help you get by some issues on the job that might keep you from doing the job the way that you want to be able to do it. The other part of supported employment might be that it's actually the job itself, that the supported employment provider is giving you a place to work and helping you work and doing work with you. So either helping you at a private job or providing the job itself. It's very important to recognize that supported employment is supposed to be in the community with people who have disabilities and with people who do not have disabilities. That's the way it's supposed to work. So if you're simply working only with other people who have disabilities and being supervised by somebody who does not have a disability, that's not something the system wants you to be going through. Let me give you a couple of examples. One is a really bad thing, and the other was something that was sort of fun but didn't work. The really bad thing was not in this state, but in a state in the Midwest. There was a turkey farm, and the turkey farm was operated by a supported employment provider under the waiver in that state. And at the turkey farm, it was only people with disabilities who were doing the work. They were killing turkeys, catching turkeys, taking care of turkeys, shoveling out turkey manure, all the rest of that stuff. And they were doing it only as people with disabilities. It was cold, they didn't have heat, they were sleeping in really rotten arrangements, and all of this was isolated from people who should have been protecting them because it was only people with disabilities who were participating in the supported employment at the turkey farm. And only when outsiders found out about it did the people who operated the turkey farm get arrested, which happened, and the people who were doing the work got protected. A reason that happened was because people were segregated in this turkey farm and couldn't get out, couldn't live a normal life because they weren't working together with people who didn't have disabilities. Now that's a really bad example. Then there are activities that are supported employment that are isolated from other people with disabilities. Might be a lot of fun, but they don't go anywhere. There was a local agency that operated what was called the cleanup crew. And the cleanup crew would go to various places like high schools or common areas, and they would pick up trash, and then they would get back in the van and go back to where they came from. This was fun for the people involved, and it involved getting some skills. But at the same time, there wasn't an opportunity to move forward with it because what you were doing was you were working only with people who had disabilities. You were doing only things that people with disabilities did, like pick up trash in particular ways. You weren't in charge of anything, and you were being supervised by somebody who didn't have a disability. So you didn't have an opportunity to pick up skills that would be useful in an integrated workplace where you were used to working together with people who didn't have disabilities. So that was a worthwhile effort, but it didn't match up to what the regulations require and what the law requires about supported employment. Supported employment is a very important area for people with disabilities. It's something the state of Alaska and the federal government are concentrating on. They want you to be working. They want you to be giving something back to the community. They want you to be independent and self-supporting to the extent that you can be. This is a very important thing. At the same time, maybe because it's so important, there are some disagreements between the agencies that provide supported employment and, say, the state of Alaska. And those disagreements are typically about how much time you can spend getting ready for work. Because, as we all know, when you are going to be out in the job market, earning a wage and supporting yourself, there are some things you have to do to prepare for that. And if you have disabilities, there are some skills that you need to learn before you end up in the workplace. There are some skills that need to be reinforced, and there are some things that they need to do to follow up. Now, all that is true, but it leads to some possible problems. For example, you might spend several months or a year in something called supported employment, where what you are really doing is preparing to work but not actually working. And the state has been insistent on cutting down on the amount of time you can spend waiting to go to work and learning job skills. They want to cut down on that. At the same time, they want to cut down on the other things that you do that are not actually working. So you want to end up going to work and earning a wage, and the state doesn't want necessarily to pay for a lot of preparation time or recovery time or anything like that. So there are some differences of opinion sometimes over whether what you ought to be doing is working or whether what you ought to be doing is preparing for work. Now, when you actually get to work, it could be that the person helping you is basically going to be useful by explaining to your employer what it is that you need to be able to do in order to do a good job. So helping teach you things, helping check up every so often to make sure that you are doing the right thing. For example, if you're a person who learns by example, by people telling you things, by people showing you how to do something, then by you doing it, as opposed to reading an instruction manual or something. Let's suppose that you are hanging clothes on a clothes rack, that's what you're doing. You're at a downtown department store and you're hanging clothes on a clothes rack. Some people would learn how to do that by reading written instructions on where to put which clothes. Other people would learn that by actually having somebody standing next to them, and they would put clothes on the clothes rack and on different clothes racks at different times for different reasons and sort them. And the way they would learn to do that is by actually doing it, as opposed to having somebody tell them how to do it or having somebody give them a book that they would read about how to do it. So if you're the kind of person who learns by actually doing something, one point of supported employment is somebody goes with you and explains to the person who is supervising you on the job, this is how this person learns how to do stuff. So that's one way to do it. Then there's something called a job coach. And a job coach might be somebody, or would be somebody, who would go with you to the job site and actually stay with you and watch as you do things and help you get through it and coach you as you do things. And that's what a job coach would do, and that is another part of supported employment. Before we leave supported employment, let's talk about younger people. Let's talk about people who are still in the school system and who eventually are going to be adults and who are going to be adults in the world of work. If you're in the special education system in school, there is a responsibility that your school has and that the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation has and Tribal Vocational Rehabilitation has. All of these agencies are supposed to work together to help you make what's called transition from your school to the world of work. And that involves getting together in meetings and making a plan. We at Disability Law Center, the lawyers, are particularly interested not so much in whether a school system sets up a meeting to help you with a plan to adjusting to supported employment or other things that you're doing as an adult in the world of work. We're not so much interested in whether the school district does its job, because most of the time it does. We are particularly interested in whether the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation will actually help in this process. So if you are aware of a problem that somebody is having with getting through transition from the school system to the world of adult work, and you want some guidance and help in getting through that, let us know at Disability Law Center. Let other people know if there's a problem and people are not showing up for these meetings. It doesn't happen every time, but if it happens to you, let us know. One final thing about these meetings and about transition and about supported employment. You might assume that all of this is intended to head you in a particular direction. I think the assumption is probably not right, but you might think what these people are trying to do with me is get me from school into a fast food restaurant where I will do cleaning at the fast food restaurant or I will be at the counter. No matter what it is, it's going to be a fast food restaurant that I am going to be working at. And that's the purpose of the whole program. That's not actually how it's supposed to work. What's supposed to happen and what should happen and what does happen is they check with you to see what kinds of things you are interested in. And then they are supposed to try to get you as close as possible to the things that you really want to do. Now, if you're the kind of person who says, I really want to be at a fast food restaurant. I like fast food. I like fast food restaurants. I want to be behind the counter. That is a fulfilling job for me. Then they listen to you and that's what you end up doing. But if you want to be at some business that you really like, where people drive fire trucks or people go various places that you would like to go, and if you want to be part of that, then they're supposed to listen to you and they're supposed to help you get as close as possible to the goal that you actually have, not just being at a fast food restaurant. Now, if you end up at a fast food restaurant and that's what you want to do, good for you. That's the end of Section H on supported employment.